As we trod that well-beaten track into the city of the damned, we passed them banging from the crosses, to which they had been nailed in long procession by the roadside. We walked then that avenue of broken corpses whose eyes yet followed us, whose heads turned as they addressed us thus in thin, dead words. Turn back, turn back, turn back. Welcome, my friends. If you couldn't tell from the opening quote there, we are diving into the city of Mordheim. This is a game that I am very excited to play, something I've always been interested in, and diving into the real narrative RPG aspects of a tabletop war game sounds just great, I think. And for my first warband, I am choosing the Witch Hunters. With my deep love of all horror movies, it was very hard to pick anything except for the Dracula Hunters. So this is my test paint scheme for the first model in my warband. And I really wanted to give these guys the look of they are out combing through the town looking to hunt Draculas. Without further ado, while I paint this model, let us dive into the Mordheim lore. Now, to start off, I want to give everyone the history of Mordheim, with it being a 25-year-old dead game. There are newer Warhammer fans that might not know this great world here. So, let's dive in. Never is the father of men more sorely needed than in the dying year of the last century of the second millennium. For the Empire, once as mighty in arms as it was bold in spirit, is now a realm rent by war and weakened by corruption. No emperor rules in these dark and terrible days. Instead, the Empire is riven into many lands, from Ostermark in the cold north to Wissenland in the distant south, from Marienburg by the Western Ocean to Sylvania that lies under the shadow of the World's Edge Mountains. Each lord fights his brothers within his borders and neighbors without. Thus the lords of the Empire squabble over the crown whilst bandits and rogues roam at will. None suffer as greatly as the dispossessed, so it is scarce wonder that the poor give themselves to wantonness, drunkenness, and all manner of vice. Theirs is a wretched existence, slain by blade and fire, squeezed dry by tax gatherers, robbed by bloated merchants who grow ever richer upon the profits of disorder. It was in the city of Mordheim, in the land of Ostermark, on the first day of the year 1999 of the era of Sigmar, that the seeress of the Sisters of Sigmar first observed in the night sky the long-awaited sign. It was as the prophet Macadamnus of Grail had predicted more than 500 years before when he wrote, "In the city of his sisters he will return to us on wings of fire. From his throne he shall reign in incorruptible flesh forever. No death shall there be for those that gather to him there. And the northern lords shall rule the lands of the worlds together." Only then was it clear that the city referred to was none other than Mordheim. This city was home to the Holy Order of the Sisters of Sigmar, the Sisters of the Prophecy, and also the most northerly of the lands of the Empire. As to the Wings of Fire, this meaning too was plain for all to see. Overhead in the night sky was Sigmar's own holy sign, the double-tailed comet whose appearance 2,000 years before was held to have foretold his birth. Night after night the comet grew brighter. Day after day people flooded into Mordheim as news spread through the Empire of Sigmar's impending descent upon Wings of Fire. As the last year of the 20th century wore on, the comet swelled until night was altogether banished from the streets of Mordheim. Its fires raged in the heavens so that the sun itself seemed a dull, cold thing in comparison. Beneath that portentous orb, the people of Mordheim seemed to forget any sense of modesty and gave themselves up to a ceaseless orgy of depravity. Who knows how many souls were crammed into that city? How many hundreds of thousands had gathered there from all over the empire, so that every street of every district overflowed with the unceasing music of merrymaking. Outside the city walls, the newcomers heaved and crushed and danced. None sought rest or shelter. For in those endless days, no one stopped to sleep, but danced, feasted, drank, and gave themselves up to indecent pleasures. Later, it is said that demons crept up from the shadows and mingled with the throng, crying joyously and cavorting with man and woman alike. But who could be so sure of anything that happened? Their minds clouded ever afterwards by the horror of those times. It was not Sigmar but his judgment that fell upon the city of Mordheim on the first moment of the first day of the new era. As the cavalcade of wickedness rose to its zenith, the hammer of Sigmar fell to earth and ended forever the lives of every man, woman, and child within the city. With a roar 10,000 times louder than thunder, the ground seemed to rise to meet the fire, casting down buildings, toppling walls, and flattening trees into a flaming blast. In the distant city of Altdorf, temples shuddered and falling masonry plummeted to the streets below. Far beyond the Empire's borders, the underground fortresses of the dwarves that had stood for generations cracked and fell. Nothing remained of Mordheim but burned and charred ruins. The city was so crowded that not everyone could enter. A few of the revelers that massed outside the city walls did avoid the cataclysm. These survivors fled as far as they could, carrying the tale of Sigmar's divine punishment throughout the Empire. But even these did not escape unharmed, for many subsequently died, their bodies twisted and distorted from within by mutation, and their minds tortured by the memories of what they had witnessed. A swirling vapor enshrouded the city for many days after its destruction. This miasma was lit from within by an unearthly green glow, and was so hot that none could approach. Eventually, this vapor dispersed somewhat, and the ruins cooled. A few of the dispossessed drifted back to make a search for valuables abandoned in haste, or such treasures as might have escaped the wrath of Sigmar. In the new year, strange stories began to circulate of a wondrous stone discovered in the ruins. A glowing dark shard capable of working miracles. Soon, other stones were discovered, of all shapes and sizes, credited with powers of the most extraordinary kind. If such tales are to be believed, the sick were cured, the blind could be made to see, tall trees would grow from the ground in a single day, and the very dead could be raised and made to speak again. Most telling of all was the successful transmutation of lead to gold, a feat undertaken at the behest of Siegfried, Count of Reichland, by his personal alchemist Van Hoffman. Rumors of this discovery spread like wildfire throughout the Empire and beyond, as all manners of men flocked to the ruins of Mordheim to search for this weird stone, as the strange stones were now called. So it was that the ruins of Mordheim drew the attention of the lords of the Empire and many more besides, for power and wealth was surely there for the taking. For some, there was a promise of wealth in the form of gold, which would pay their armies and advance their imperial ambitions. For others, there was the lure of magical power. Yet others were drawn by simple greed, or else by more sinister reasons that loyal and goodly men could but hardly imagine. Then came the reports of monsters that lurked in the ruins, gigantic rats the size of men, the walking dead, demons, and mutant creatures that might once have been men. Of such things, nothing more is to be said here. All came to Mordheim with their dreams, though few scarce imagined that by their actions the destiny of the world would soon be decided. Today the land of Ostermark exists in name only. Wild reavers roam freely over the lands that are now neglected and ruinous. Foreign armies march through its territory without heed, and such honest men who remain, a pitiful few, must endure the constant marauding of thieves and bandits. Yet men still come to Ostermark. Indeed, they flock there from all over the Empire, like carrion to a corpse. They are drawn by a mysterious lure of weird stone, for the magical powers of this stone have made it valuable beyond its weight in gold. Though the rewards for their endeavors may be great, and many a fortune have been earned in a day, the dangers are greater still. When treasure seekers first entered Mordheim, they did so without care, and often singly or in pairs, for little did they imagine the terrors that lurked in the grim ruins of the city. Many vanished without a trace. Others returned maimed in body, or unseated in mind, babbling uncontrollably of outlandish and bestial creatures. Some talked endlessly of demons and creatures from the pit. A few emerged empty-handed from the ruins, to laugh insanely and unceasingly to this very day. Soon it was only the most foolhardy who ventured alone into the city of the damned. Fortune seekers chose instead to gather into armed groups or warbands, all the better for their mutual protection. Nor was it only monstrous things that were to take the lives of fortune hunters. For the very air of Mordheim was found to be poisonous to those who lingered there too long. Even the weird stone they sought was to prove the death of many, for its raw magical power proved capable of burning flesh and wreaking horrific changes of mind and form. Many who entered Mordheim as comrades were soon driven to discord and murder by the vapors of the air and sorcerous energies of the weird stone. Others needed no magical influence before they set upon their fellows. The very discovery of the valuable stone was enough to make them turn upon each other like savages who dispute a glittering trinket, whilst all around them lie even greater treasures. Many more were to emerge from their sorties apparently unharmed. Yet they soon sickened and died, or else developed such monstrous deformities of the flesh that their comrades abandoned them to die, or else slew them outright to spare them their shame. Because of the pestilence within the city, there have grown up beyond its tumbled walls numerous shabby settlements of tents and such rude encampments as parties of hunters build to pass a week in the mountains. Needless to say, the great rivalry of men from different lands of the Empire have meant that these are set apart from each other and fortified with crude earthworks against their neighbors' attack. Some, such as Sigmarhaven, are safe enough for all their disorder, mounting paid watchmen to keep the peace, and providing a market for the arms sellers, sutlers, and many victuallers, whose shoddy wares fetch inflated prices in the treasure fever camps that grid the ruins. Others, like Cutthroat's Den, are little more than nests of murderers, where mutants walk freely, and hooded men barter corpses to necromancers in return for tainted gold. These refuges, vile as they are safe compared to the ruins of Mordheim itself, where even to tarry an idle hour can spell death or worse. The bands of men that dare to venture within are brave indeed, or else filled with a desperate kind of madness. Mercenary adventurers find employment quickly in the warbands that sally through the gates of Mordheim each day. Once through the gate, though, all common laws of human conduct cease to have any meaning. One may injure and murder at will, and every rival becomes a deadly enemy. Men that might dice and drink together of an evening may find themselves at each other's throats with daggers and swords the next morning. Such is the law of Mordheim, where there are no rules but the natural rule of kill or be killed, for only the strongest are destined to win the greatest prize of all. No one emperor reigns over the empire, and none has done so undisputed for 400 years or more. Among the counts of the empire, there are many who would wear the crown had they but the strength to impose their will upon their neighbors. By ancient tradition, the emperor is elected from amongst the rulers of the land, who are known as electors, so that the aspirant must seek the support of his fellows to obtain the majority. In addition, there are other authorities who, whilst not eligible for the crown, are also electors. And these must be courted too, for the influence is very great. Most notable is the Grand Theogonist of Sigmar, the leader and spirit of the people of Sigmar, whose temples stand in each town in every part of the empire. The discovery of Weirdstone in Mordheim has thrown all into confusion, for it offers the opportunity to break the deadlock between rival claimants. Each count has sponsored mercenary adventurers to recover what Weirdstone they can. Of these, the rulers of Reichland, Middenheim, and Sylvania pressed hardest for the throne, whilst Lady Magrita, the common choice of the lesser states and champion of the merchant guilds, has been disqualified by the Grand Theogenist of Sigmar, according to the doctrine of male ascent, by which no woman may wear Sigmar's crown. Thus it is that the eyes of these great rivals turn towards Mordheim and its uncanny Weirdstone that has the power to turn base metals into gold. The counts are not alone in their greed for power. The Empire has suffered disarray for many hundreds of years, and during that time the influence of the merchants and temples has grown greatly. In the city of Marienburg, the largest and most prosperous port in the Old World, merchants have flourished as nowhere else, and today the burgomeisters of that city wield powers of patronage greater than that of many noblemen. Most influential of all are the free traders, a secret circle of the most wealthy guildsmen whose ambition is to raise the Lady Magrita of Marienburg to the throne of the Empire. The citizens of Marienburg are so well known for the richness of dress, love of jewelry, and preening ways that there are many who make fun of them and call them popinjays. In truth, there are many more who envy the wealth and security of Marienburg in a time of unrest. As the power of the counts has declined, so the power of merchant guilds has grown. Now there are plenty of rich commoners who would like to see an end to the old ways, and a new ruling assembly that would give the mercantile classes political authority to match their wealth. Such is the general discontent that there are some among the wealthy who seek to gain power by means most foul. They turn to sorcery, that darkest of arts, recognized by all right-thinking folk as the very embodiment of evil, whose practice has long since been punished with torture and death. Though few dare say so, it is common knowledge that wizards walk abroad in the Empire, meeting secretly to worship dark gods, and creeping amongst the charnel houses to steal the dead. In hidden cellars, these agents of corruption summon demons to do their bidding, while necromancers send undead agents into the night to murder and steal. Now it is believed sorcerers walk openly in the city of the damned, seeking the same Weirdstone whose power may multiply the vitality of their own dark arts many times over. In consequence, the Templars of Sigmar gather to Mordheim, their carts laden with cages, braziers, irons, and ingenious instruments of torture, to do the work of Sigmar where it is most sorely needed. Witch hunters are they called, most commonly by those that fear them and those that hate them, and by themselves too, for they take pride in their persecution of heretics. Behind the witch hunters stand the greatest spiritual authority in the Empire, the Grand Theogenist of Sigmar. He too dreams of temporal power, having denied the crown to Magrita of Marienburg. He is said to secretly covet it for himself. The destruction of Mordheim has created an atmosphere of religious terror, for who can deny that Sigmar's judgment has come to pass, and his people here have been found wanting. Since the new year, thousands have gathered to the holy places to make peace with their God and accept his punishment. Many supplicants have pledged their goods to the temples and taken to the roads as penance. Great crowds of beggars travel the lands, scourging themselves and each other to atone for the sins of all men. Now the great Theogenist has sent his witch hunters into Mordheim, ostensibly to cleanse it of the evil that undoubtedly dwells there, but also, it is said, to gather up Weirdstone for his own purposes. There was a time when it seemed that the Empire itself was dying. Torn apart by a terrible civil war, the realm of Sigmar had fallen to anarchy and chaos. Come now to those dark and terrible days, when the struggle for the throne of the Empire divides brothers from brothers. Fires burn in the tomb-cold night, as bounty hunters and ruthless mercenaries search for the stones of power amidst the ruins of Mordheim. What is left of a once proud city is now blackened ruins, devastated by the hellstone from the sky. So now it is the time of chaos, of war, of slaughter and the darkest deeds, when the courage of men has been sullied by the dark demons of greed and lust for earthly power. Come with me, descend into the darkness. With that, let's go over to the spinny shots. First of all, I want to thank you all for joining me on yet another video. I have been bouncing around with different armies and different topics and different games quite a bit, but there's a lot I have to catch up on, and a lot I've been working on, and I am very, very hyped on Mordheim recently, and excited to get my first games in. I have a whole Witch Hunter warband that I have to work on, so expect more videos while I dive into more Mordheim lore. Today I really just want to set the stage of the foundations and how Mordheim came to be. Now I'm curious, since this game has such a wonderful cult following that is just so cool, is there anyone out there that plays Mordheim? Who's your favorite warband? Do you have any awesome stories from games that have happened? Like I said, I've yet to play, but my local group is getting together soon to pick up a campaign, and I'm very excited. And if you want to hang out with me while I paint the rest of my warband or any other of my million projects that I'm working on, be sure to follow me over at twitch.tv/drinkyourpaintwaterlive, where I stream about 4 nights a week. And be sure to give me a like and a subscribe on here. It is greatly appreciated as I'm trying to get the YouTube thing going. And with that, I will see you in the next one.